I'm sure you get this all the time. People asking you, hey, like, how do you start a podcast? How did you do it? Because people are always interested. I'm sure you get inundated with those questions.
Here and there. Yeah.
It's kind, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a second. It's kind of annoying because no one really helped me. And no one did you have someone that helped you through this process, or did you just learn it?
To a degree, but I think what you're getting at is what kind of question are you going to ask? And how much research have you done before you brought it to me?
Exactly.
And it's like, I think that I would love to help people. Anyone that wants to reach out, I would love that. But if it's with something that, you clearly haven't thought through,
right?
Like I am obsessed with what I do. It just so happens to be my thing now. And so like, I appreciate when people are obsessed with something. So that's the kind of energy that I would like to surround myself with. Yeah. And not to say that I'll, turn anybody down. I answer everyone that reaches out to me. Yeah. But I think that's what you're getting at.
Absolutely. Yeah. If someone comes like, hey, what camera should I use? And it's not in a weird way. I'll answer the question, but it's much different when someone's like, man, should I use a webcam like a Brios, or should I use a mirrorless cam like a Sony A7? And that's a question I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. Like, because the only way you'll really get that answer is from someone with experience. But if you haven't looked into it at all, it's very, and there's so much information out there.
Yeah, and dude, the only thing, like, I'm not an interesting person. Like, I don't find myself to have an interesting story. And there's probably a lot of people out there that maybe they're not necessarily interested in how to build a podcast, because there's a lot of podcasts, but like by comparison, population wise, not everybody's going to want to hear about that. But what I think the important part is whatever your thing is in life, people have these thoughts that float around in their head, and they don't execute on them for a number of reasons. Yeah. And then what happens one day is you wake up with the regret of having not done something. And that is like my biggest fear in life. So that's the reason I started it, is to minimize that regret. And I think it just proves the point. Like, man, if you're obsessed with something and you make a lot of sacrifices and you are willing to be laughed at or ridiculed or whatever comes with putting yourself out there like this, like, I don't have any media training. I don't know how camera works. I don't know how sound works. I don't know how to edit. Like, I had zero experience, no connections whatsoever. But like, if you put your mind to doing something and don't give yourself the excuse, or don't give yourself an out, then you can do whatever you want in life. So I think that would be the takeaway. I hope that's the takeaway.
Absolutely. Even to this degree is I've changed my mind a little bit through experience and what I've seen and what the new reality is living in this generation. I think kids should start podcasts. Drew, your daughter, is messing around in the podcast world a little bit, sure right?
Sure is.
Talked to her a little bit over Christmas about that.
Yep, she's doing a good job.
And this is what I like about that, but it goes back to intention. Is your intent to start a podcast because you want to be famous, because you want to make money, because you want to be popular? Those are horrible reasons to start a podcast, and you will fail. Yeah. But if your kid wants to start a podcast, and make sure that, hey, what are you passionate about? What do you want to learn more about? What do you want other people to know about? And hey, if no one watches, no one watches. But if 5 people watch, that's awesome. But what they'll learn from having to get the whole experience of essentially building a small business, starting the YouTube channel, the photo editing process, whether it be on Canva, or whatever, and seeing that idea through to a product, that's huge on a young person's life. And so if the intent is to do it right, and they're not upset because they're not popular, but they're just there to put out information, and encourage your kids to do it. Actually, they'll learn a ton.
I agree, and I think it's you have to love the process, because the chances are you're not going to be successful if you go into it with the idea of making money. Like, nobody starts a podcast to get rich, man. That's not how it works. I hate to break it to anybody that's thinking about it out there.
Unless you're already rich and popular.
Exactly.
That's the only way
then you
it
can
works.
Sell anything, though.
That's
you can be a celebrity and start a furniture company and
right.
be a billionaire. But that's the thing, man. If you want to do something for money, or if you want to do it for fame, or any of those reasons, you have to love the process. I'll just speak from YouTube and podcasting. By all conventional YouTube logic, Take somebody like Mr. Beast. He'll tell you, like, nobody's going to see your stuff for a really long time.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen when you're continuously putting yourself out there on a weekly basis and you're staying in on Friday nights to do edits that no one sees?
That's right.
It's hard enough when people do see it and you know that there's a payoff coming. But when nobody's watching and you're thinking about what everybody else thinks of you and you're like, oh, this guy's a freaking weirdo. Nobody's watching his stuff, but he's doing it anyway. You have to love the process because that's what's going to happen. You're not going to blow up overnight.
And I think it's another good thing. It sounds weird to say this, but for young people, even young adults, to put yourself out there, go through this process, go through all of this hard work, and then you know what's going to happen as soon as you put out a product? Negative comments.
Yeah.
All that hard work, and you're just trying to do your best to do something, and people are just going to start, this is trash. Why'd you do this? I hate this. They'll just they have no idea who you are. You have no idea how hard you worked on this, and they'll just trash it. And I hate to say it because it sounds so heartless. Good. Little Jocko quote there. Good. They don't like your podcast? Good. Because how can you handle this? Because if you can't handle a couple negative comments, then you're not. Then you definitely don't want to become more popular because just a lot more negative comments come with it.
It's just something that's part of the deal. And like when you sign the dotted line and start something up like this, that it's a necessary evil, and you have to be prepared for that. And you can't have it both ways. I think we talked about this. There's a lot of validity in the comments sometimes. And what the issue is trying to discern what is just somebody who's really unhappy with their life versus like, oh, the sound sounded a little off, or like the video looked a little off. Like those are valid.
Yeah.
But I think we as humans are not built for that sort of scrutiny at scale on the internet. Like we're just physically, our brains are not built for that.
It's tough. But then again, I don't think some comments can be so bad and so mean they're funny. In fact, I have one of my favorite. I showed it to you last night. Yeah. One of my favorite comments. I wish I'd been more prepared for it. We'd pull up on the screen. I was on the Andy Stump podcast. And someone wrote a comment. It goes, while Brinson, Montana, I hope he dies in a structure fire so that way we never have to hear his voice again. It was so mean and so over the top. It made me laugh. I was like, I wasn't even mad at it. Like that's kind of funny.
But that's a crazy thing to say.
That's a crazy thing to say.
Like you would never walk up to someone in the street and say what you just said in a YouTube comment to them. You would be committed.
For sure.
Dude, I think of the clearest example is like women on Instagram, these like models or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Some of the nasty comments they get, like if you walked up to a girl on the street and be like, hey, you're fat and disgusting, I hope you kill yourself. Like you deserve to be thrown in something, I don't know.
Right.
Not actually, to clarify, but that's crazy. Like you would never say something because you're not a psychopath, but on the internet, the internet is not a real place. That's what you have to remember.
Absolutely. But anyway, so with all that at hand, what made you want to do? What were you doing at the time? And then you're like, you know what? I'm gonna do a podcast.
Yeah. So around I think it was 2020. After all that happened, I started working fully remote, and by extension, started like consuming a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
And like interview style stuff, self-improvement stuff, a lot of that, and started watching people like Sean Ryan, like, there was a lot of good people out there, but, yeah, man, eventually I just kind of felt some like slight pull to do one of my own. Mm-hmm. And like, I honestly couldn't even tell you why. Okay. Couldn't really even tell you why. I just thought it was like, man, if I could do anything in the world, like, or who would I be? I would be Joe Rogan. Like that guy gets to talk to the most interesting people in the world every day. And so like, and going back to just not having the regret of not doing it, I decided to do it. And again, it was a long process from that initial decision, which wasn't fully baked, to actually like buying equipment and letting it rip. But that's how it happened, just by extension of watching other stuff.
There's two things that jump out at me about as I thought about more your journey more holistically, because you're going to be a guest, and that have been in front of my face the whole time. And in fact, we just kind of mentioned something earlier. Don't start a podcast to be rich and famous unless you're already rich and famous. Like oddly enough, that you will get a lot of views and money. But like I said, you can sell furniture; it doesn't matter. But even on a lower scale, you talk about Joe Rogan. Well, Joe Rogan was already rich and famous, to some degree. He was known, of course, but not everyone. Everyone always sees who he is now and doesn't look back. He's been doing this for years when it wasn't.
He's the Godfather,
popular.
man. You and I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it wasn't for him. So it's different. He invented the category.
There is some truth to that, but he is a popular person. He became more popular with UFC. He had a lot of things going for him.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a nobody that started it. And even for me, when I say I wasn't I had relationships and connections. So if I want to call a Delta Force guy, I can do that. Like you cannot. I was in the community. So,
and you have the background for yourself.
Right. And I have a background to give an opinion that some people care about. Yet you had neither one of these, and your podcast is wildly more popular than mine. I mean, that's crazy in some aspect.
But
Why is that?
Well, I think it could be explained by it's not about me. It will never be about me. And I don't even like talking about myself. Like I'm here because I wanted to come smoke cigars with you. Like the podcast is just a thing that we're doing.
Right.
But if for anybody that watches my show, like I make it entirely about the guest. My job is to keep my mouth shut, ask good prepared questions, steer the conversation in a direction that I know the listeners are going to want to hear. And I want to get to the point where you forget that I'm there until the guest stops talking fully. And that's when you hear me ask another question, and that's it. So if you think about it that way, then my expertise or my background, and I guess it does matter to some people. I'll see some comments oh, what's Dalton's background?
Yeah.
But for the sake of what I'm trying to put out, it's your life story. So my background, as long as I treat you respectfully, as long as I'm in the know, as long as I'm well prepared and I do a good job of doing my job, to me, my background is not super relevant. And I think it speaks to the fact that for most people, it's not, because there's people are starving for interviewers to just shut the fuck up and get out of their guests' ways.
Right.
And dude, it drives me, I don't want to get off on an angry tangent right now, but it drives me nuts. It really does. And I hate to have it be it's just true. That's one of the reasons that I started my show. So I was you have Brent Tucker on your show and you just can't shut up. You're interrupting this man. You're asking him about something that nobody wants to hear about. What are we doing here? So it's you're wasting people's time. And it's it kind of comes off as pompous or arrogant, but I was well, I could do this. And then the other part of me was well, then do it, you big pussy. So that's where we are.
Exactly. And it's when you find successful people, you'll find they have so much in common, regardless of what they're successful at. And it's just this pride, but pride can be a bad thing. I always there's a hint of pride that's healthy. That pride that says I can do it better. That pride says I know. From the outside, it looks like I shouldn't feel this way, but I do feel this way, and I'm going to prove it to everyone. But and you don't tell anyone that. It's just how you feel, and then it drives you to go out and do that. And whether what you're doing right now in life, but what you're talking about was my exact mentality when I was an air defender. It's I'm going to be a Green Beret, and if I'd have said that out loud, they'd be no, you're not. No, you're settle down, Brent. No, you're not. And if you'd told anyone, I'm gonna make a living podcast and I'm gonna get 500,000 followers in a year, and then be no, you're not. Sit down. But you didn't say that. You just went to work and proved it.